She died 3 days ago. At least that's what everyone believed. But on the morning of her own funeral, Emma stood at the back of the crowd, alive, unseen, and listening, watching the man who tried to take everything from her. Emma was not just a wife. She was a builder of her own life, quietly successful, careful with her decisions, disciplined with her money. She didn't inherit wealth. She created it. Properties, investments, accounts she managed herself. Nothing about her success was accidental. And for years, nothing slipped through her fingers. Until Derek came into her life. The church was quiet. Too quiet. Soft whispers filled the room, blending with the low sound of distant sobbing. Emma stood near the entrance, her body half hidden behind a pillar. A black veil covered her face. Her hands trembled slightly, but her eyes were steady, focused, watching. At the front of the room was her coffin. Closed, polished, final. A white ribbon lay across it. Beloved wife, gone too soon. The irony almost made her laugh. Emma swallowed slowly. Gone. That was the word they had chosen. Gone. Not taken. Not lost. Not questioned. Just gone. Derek stood beside the coffin, dressed in black, head slightly bowed, the perfect grieving husband. From a distance he looked convincing. But Emma wasn't watching from a distance. She was watching closely, carefully, and something felt wrong. There were no tears, no shaking hands, no broken posture. Just stillness, controlled, measured, as if he had practiced this moment. Emma's grip tightened around her purse. That was when Derek slowly lifted his head, and for a brief second, he smiled. Emma's heart stopped. Not a full smile, just a small, almost invisible curve. Gone in less than a second. But she saw it. She knew what she saw. Her breath became shallow. No, she whispered under her veil. A woman standing beside her turned slightly. Are you all right? She asked softly. Emma nodded quickly. I'm fine. But she wasn't. Because in that moment, a terrifying thought began to form. What if this wasn't grief? What if this was relief? The pastor stepped forward. It is time for the husband to say a few words. A quiet murmur moved through the room. Derek walked slowly to the front, took a deep breath, then began. Emma was a wonderful woman. His voice was steady, too steady. She brought light into my life. Emma closed her eyes briefly, listening, analyzing every word. Her passing was sudden, unexpected. A pause. Then he added quietly, but some things are beyond our control. Emma's eyes opened sharply. That line. Something about it felt wrong. Not comforting, not grieving, almost final, like a conclusion. Emma stepped back slowly, her mind racing, her chest tightening. He didn't meet her by accident. He found her, learned about her, understood who she was, and what she had. Then he became exactly what she needed. Patient, supportive, reliable. For a long time, he asked for nothing, and that was how she trusted him. It started small, a little help, a temporary loan, a business idea. Always reasonable, always explained, always temporary. Then gradually, the numbers grew, the requests became bigger, the explanations less clear. But by then, trust had already been built, and Emma believed they were building a future together, until things stopped adding up. Small withdrawals she didn't recognize, documents she couldn't find, transactions that didn't make sense. At first, she questioned herself. Then, she started paying attention, watching, quietly, just like she was doing now. That night, the night everything happened, it came rushing back. The drink, the dizziness, the darkness, and then, nothing. Until she woke up somewhere she wasn't supposed to be. Alive. Barely. Hidden. And now, standing at her own funeral, listening to a man who didn't seem surprised she was gone. Derek's voice echoed through the church. I will always love you, Emma. But Emma was no longer listening. because at that exact moment, someone near the front turned slightly and looked directly at her. Not through her, at her. Their eyes widened. Recognition. Emma froze, because in that instant, she realized something even more dangerous than before. She wasn't the only one who knew. She was still alive. And if one person had recognized her, it meant only one thing. She was no longer safe. And Emma realized, the truth wasn't just that he betrayed her. It was that he had been planning it from the beginning. Someone in that room knew. Not suspected. Not imagined. Knew. Because when their eyes locked with Emma's, they didn't look confused. They looked afraid. Emma's body went cold. The man standing near the front row didn't look away. He stared. Directly at her. His breathing changed. His expression tightened. Recognition. There was no mistake. He knew her. Emma turned her face slightly, pulling the veil lower. Too late. He had already seen. Her heart pounded violently. Not here. Not now. This wasn't part of the plan. She was supposed to watch quietly, leave quietly, disappear again. But now, everything had changed. Emma shifted slowly toward the exit, careful not to draw attention. One step, then another. Behind her, a chair moved. She didn't turn. But she knew. He was following. The church doors felt too far away. Every step echoed louder than it should. Her breathing became shallow, controlled. Don't run. Running would expose her. But the footsteps behind her were getting closer. Faster. Deliberate. Then, a voice, low, urgent. Emma. She froze. Slowly she turned. The man stood a few feet away. Mid-40s. Familiar. Too familiar. It was Derek's cousin, Sam. His eyes scanned her face beneath the veil. You're supposed to be dead, he whispered. Emma said nothing. Her mind raced. Think fast. I think you've mistaken me for someone else, she said quietly. Sam stepped closer. No, he said firmly. I don't make mistakes like that. A pause. Then, lower. I saw you that night. Emma's stomach dropped. That night? He was there? How? She asked before she could stop herself. Sam's eyes darkened. I wasn't supposed to be there, he said. Neither was he. The words hung in the air. Heavy. Dangerous. Derek told everyone it was an accident. Sam continued. But what I saw... He stopped. Glanced toward the front of the church, where Derek was still speaking, then back at her. What I saw wasn't an accident. I knew something was wrong, Sam continued. The way everything happened too fast. No hospital. No questions. No investigation. Emma nodded slowly, because she had seen the same pattern. Even before that night, the missing money, the hidden movements, the secrecy. It was all connected. Emma's pulse quickened. Then why didn't you say anything? She asked. Sam let out a quiet breath. Because I wasn't sure if I was supposed to. That answer chilled her. Not couldn't. Not afraid. Supposed to. Meaning, there was something bigger. Something planned. He leaned closer. His voice barely audible. You shouldn't be here. Emma swallowed. I needed to know the truth. Sam shook his head slowly. You being alive, he hesitated, was never part of the plan. A sudden silence fell over the room. Derek had stopped speaking. Emma felt it immediately. That shift. That awareness. Slowly she turned her head. Derek was no longer looking at the crowd. He was looking at her. Directly. Unmoving. Unblinking. Their eyes met, and this time, there was no pretending, no performance, no mask. Just one clear, terrifying realization in his expression. He knew. And in that moment, Emma understood something far worse than before. She hadn't just survived the night she was supposed to die. She had interrupted something that was never meant to fail. And in that moment, Emma understood something chilling. He wasn't surprised she was alive, because he knew exactly what should have happened to her that night. It wasn't just the night she almost died. It was the night everything finally made sense. Because the truth wasn't hidden in what happened to her. It was hidden in everything that came before it. In the church, Derek was staring at her. Not shocked, not confused, just aware, like a man looking at a problem that was supposed to be solved. Emma's breath slowed, because now she understood. That look wasn't new. She had seen it before. The missing money. The documents that disappeared. The accounts she couldn't trace. At the time, they felt like isolated problems. Now, they formed a pattern. A system. Something carefully constructed over time. And Derek was at the center of it. He didn't start planning that night. He had been planning for months. Maybe longer. Building access. Gaining control. Positioning himself. Not just as her husband, but as someone who could eventually replace her. It was raining. Emma stood in the living room, phone in her hand, messages open, transfers visible, numbers that didn't make sense. Derek walked in, calm, too calm. "You want to explain this?" she asked. He looked at the phone, then at her, and smiled. Not nervous, not defensive, certain. "You weren't supposed to see that yet," he said. Emma's heart pounded. "Yet," she repeated. Derek stepped closer. "There were things still in motion," he said. "Things. Not explanations. Not excuses. Plans." That was the moment she knew. This wasn't just financial betrayal. This was something bigger. "I gave you everything," Emma said. Derek's expression didn't change. "I know," he replied. And it still wasn't enough. Silence. Heavy. Unsettling. "I needed full control," he continued. "Not shared access." His tone softened slightly. "We could have avoided all of this," he said. He reached for a glass. Poured her a drink. Her usual. Her routine. The one he had carefully built over time. Emma hesitated. But she was already overwhelmed. Already shaken. She drank. Because she was still trying to understand. Not survive. Minutes later, her body betrayed her. Vision blurred. Legs weakened. "Derek," she whispered. He caught her, held her steady, and leaned close. "I needed you to react," he said quietly, "so it would look real." As she faded, his voice continued. "Once everything is transferred." A pause. "There's no reason for questions. Everything. Transferred." That was it. That was the plan. Not just to take from her, but to remove her completely. Then, another voice, the woman. Calm. Clinical. "Her pulse is low," she said. "Good," Derek replied. "Make sure it stays that way." Emma couldn't move. But she heard everything. She was moved. Handled. Declared. Not dead. But made to appear dead. No delay. No investigation. Everything was rushed. Because the longer she stayed alive, the more risk there was. Darkness. Cold. Stillness. Then, a breath. Small. Weak. But real. Her eyes opened. Barely. Her body refused to respond. But her mind was awake. Time passed. She forced movement. Fell. Crawled. Fought through weakness. Then, voices outside. They said no autopsy. Everything's already signed. ADA froze. Signed. Confirmed. Finalized. They had already erased her. That was the moment everything changed. She could have run. Disappeared. Started over. But instead, she chose something else. She chose to know the full truth. Back in the church, Emma's breathing steadied. Her fear was gone. Replaced with something else. Clarity. Because now, she understood everything. This wasn't just about money. It wasn't just about betrayal. It was about a plan, and she had only uncovered part of it. Emma thought Derek was the problem. She was wrong. Derek was just one part of it. Because what she had walked into was something far more organized and far more dangerous. Inside the church, everything had changed. The silence was no longer grief. It was tension. Derek stepped down slowly from the front. No performance, no pretending. "You should have stayed gone," he said. Emma didn't move. "You should have done it properly," she replied. A flicker in his eyes. Small, but real. Emma turned toward the doors. Sam moved with her. But this time, they didn't get far. Two men stepped into position, blocking the exit. Not confused, not reacting, waiting. Prepared. Emma's breathing slowed. This wasn't panic anymore. This was confirmation. "You planned this too," she said quietly. Derek didn't answer, but he didn't deny it either. The woman stepped out from the side. Calm. Controlled. The same voice Emma heard that night. "You weren't supposed to wake up," she said. Emma's eyes hardened. "You signed my death." The woman tilted her head slightly. "I confirmed what I was told to confirm." Cold. Professional. Detached. Emma looked between them. "This wasn't just about money," she said. Derek exhaled slowly. "No," he replied. "It started with money." A pause. Then, "It never ends with money." Silence. Heavy. Meaningful. The woman spoke again. "You had access," she said. "Accounts. Assets. Properties." Emma's chest tightened. Emma gave her a quick slap on her cheek even before she finished her sentence. Derek calmly held the woman as she knelt on the floor. "You think I was the first?" Emma asked. Neither of them answered. And that silence was the answer. Emma's voice dropped. "You find women like me," she said. "Independent. Private. Financially secure." Derek's expression remained still. "You build trust," she continued. "You get access. You take everything. And when that's not enough," she looked directly at him, "you remove them." The room felt smaller, tighter, because now, this wasn't just personal, it was a pattern. Derek stepped closer, looking angry and furious. "You've figured out more than you should have," he snapped. Emma didn't step back. "And you've said more than you should have," she replied. A pause. "I recorded it." She lifted her purse slightly. "Everything. Your plan, your motive, her involvement." The woman's composure cracked. Just slightly. Derek's jaw tightened. "You think that changes anything?" he asked. Emma's voice remained steady. "It already has." From outside, a distant sound, faint, but growing. Sirens. The men at the door shifted, uncertain now, looking toward Derek, waiting. For the first time, Derek hesitated. "You set this up," he said slowly. Emma nodded. "I had time," she replied. "You gave me that." The woman stepped forward quickly. "We need to end this now," she said under her breath. Urgency. Fear. Real fear. Derek looked at her. Then back at Emma. Calculating. Too many variables now. Too many witnesses. Too much exposure. The church doors burst open. People turned. Voices rose. Chaos began to ripple through the room. Emma didn't move. Because she knew. This moment was not an accident. She didn't come back to survive them. She came back to end them. They thought they had buried her. Her name. Her life. Her truth. But what they didn't know was that Emma had already rewritten the ending. The church was no longer quiet. Whispers spread. Phones lifted. Eyes widened. The doors had opened. And everything was beginning to collapse. Derek stood still. But for the first time, he was no longer in control. Emma stepped forward. Calm, measured. unshaken. "Tell them," she said. Derek's jaw tightened. "Tell them why you chose me." A long pause. Then he exhaled. At this moment, he knew he is already exposed, so out of anger and resentment, he sprouted out. "I knew who you were before I met you," Derek said. Murmurs rippled through the room. "You were careful, private, wealthy." His eyes locked onto hers. "And alone." Emma didn't flinch. "I made sure I became everything you needed," he continued. "Trust was the only way in." "It started small," he said. "Help, support, business ideas." Then his voice hardened. "But I needed more. Access wasn't enough. I needed control. The missing money," Emma said quietly. Derek nodded. "The withdrawals you couldn't trace. The documents that disappeared. The transfers you found too early." Gasps filled the room. "It was already done," he said. "You just noticed before I finished." "You were going to stop everything," Derek continued. "Freeze accounts, ask questions." A pause. Cold, calculated. "So I removed the problem." Silence. Heavy. Final. "You drugged me," Emma retorted. "Yes." "No autopsy." "Yes." "No investigation." "Yes." Each answer landed harder than the last. Emma turned slowly toward the coffin. Her voice calm. "There's nothing in there, is there?" The room froze. Derek didn't respond immediately. Then, a quiet exhale. "Stopping the funeral would have raised questions," he said. A ripple of shock spread instantly. The coffin, empty. "You miscalculated," Emma said. "The drug slowed me. It didn't kill me. I woke up. I heard everything. And someone else heard me too." "A nurse found me," Emma continued. "She wasn't part of your plan. She knew something was wrong. She helped me disappear before you realized I was gone." Derek's expression shifted. That detail he never saw coming. "I didn't run," Emma said. "I followed everything you left behind. The accounts, the documents, the transfers. You didn't just steal from me." She paused. "You built a system." "I sent everything to a journalist," Emma said, "before I walked into this church." Silence. Certain. Heavy. "They already have it." Sirens echoed loudly now. Close. Immediate. The men at the door stepped aside. Authorities entered. Voices rose. Control shattered completely. Derek didn't run. Didn't fight. He just stared at her. "You planned this," he said quietly. Emma nodded. "You started it," she replied. "I finished it." As authorities moved closer, Emma spoke again. Calm. Clear. "There's one more thing." The room quieted instantly. Even Derek looked back. 3 years ago," Emma said. "A woman named Elena." Confusion spread. Whispers. Uncertainty. Emma continued. "Sudden death. No autopsy. Private burial." The pattern began to form. For the first time, Derek reacted. Real panic. "You don't know what you're talking about," he snapped. But his voice was no longer controlled. Emma stepped closer. Quiet. Certain. "I found the records, the same transfers, the same signatures." Then, the final line. "You didn't start with me." Silence. Heavy. Unavoidable. Later, Emma sat across from a lawyer. Documents signed. Everything restored. Her properties, her accounts, her control legally, completely. Emma stands outside. No disguise, no fear, just stillness. And strength. She looks into the distance and says softly, "I just happened to be the one who survived." End of the story. Subscribe to this channel for me such interesting stories.